Over here.
Oh,
I'd like-
Over here?
Yeah, no, I didn't, I just want to make sure there was one here. I
Yes.
didn't see-
Okay, are
thank
we
you.
on?
All right, we'll stop now.
Okay, we're on.
Okay, I would like a motion to open the meeting.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first I want to welcome everybody to the police station tonight. The planning board usurped the town board's police commission meeting tonight, and they're having a special meeting on Park Point, and so the chief offered us his beautiful surroundings, and so we're here tonight. Thank you, chief, for hosting
My
us.
pleasure, thank you for coming.
And can everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so what I would like first is, I need to add to the agenda and put it under the resolution of the waiver for the civil service exam age limit, a letter from the police chief to Wilmerite correcting the misperception of the original letter that they've been using in, not the misperception by the chief, the misperception by Wilmerite. So I have that letter I want to read to the board and enter into the minutes, so just add that. And with that, do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so would anybody from the public like to speak? Ira?
Thank you. In regards to your last commission meeting, the chief had said that the COPS program was a good program, of looking into the program.
Which program?
COPS, that's the one they use now.
Okay,
For 5 years, the chief has been telling the commission that it wasn't any good, it didn't do what it wanted. Now, I'm just referring what happened, because we were looking into it for 5 years. We came up with a program that would have cost less than you're paying the cops now, done more, and possibly increased efficiency. So I just want to throw that out. You know, you pick whatever program you want, but there were programs out there, because the cops program kept, every time you called them, told them they can't do this, there were programs out there that would have been much more efficient, and I think before you decide on something like that, you ought to talk to Kevin, who I turned all the information over to, you know, when the commission was dissolved, and I think you'll find that a much more interesting, effective program into what it can do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a little,
Yeah,
I'm a little perplexed about what you're actually, I know you were working on a computer program for a long time.
We sat down with the chief, the sergeant, I keep calling him lieutenant, I'm sorry. And we had two program providers, police program providers come in, checked out their references, did a comparison. The last one to come in was the one the commission was discussing, or the committee. It wasn't the full commission because we never got to that point yet, and we never got to the point of bringing it to the town board, which is what we're planning to do. That program, as what we were shown, looked like it would have been able to increase police efficiency, put the officers back on the street faster because of the way the program worked. And I figured out that using certain funds that were in the police department, right now just sitting not doing anything or haven't been submitted for 5 years, and the costs that we were given,
I'm just a little perplexed at what you're talking about, funds that weren't submitted for 5 years.
the seized assets funds.
Okay,
We were after that.
Still there.
it's still there, I mean, what?
Well, we were going to use it
Okay,
as the down payment
okay,
against, that was my concept, was to
Okay.
use this as the down payment against what wouldn't cost the taxpayers, come from the thieves and whatever, and this organization had links into computers, discounts, and all this other good stuff, which is why it would have come out less than what you were paying. Plus, the main feature of this particular program was they were willing to give you data mining programs for free. You know, if you need, they wouldn't put it directly into the program, but if you needed one, like you wanted to know how many crimes were committed on Main Street in Prospect, it could give you a program that would do that. I just want to put that out because you weren't aware of this. You never, you know, we never got to talk to you. And when I hear, you know, the chief did mention the COPS program, which for 5 years, and I even called the people that did it, you couldn't get any. Their answer was, well, we don't have the ability to give that information. So all I'm saying is, when you make a judgment, if you make a judgment about a new program to get statistics, see what's going on, or whatever information you want, I'm just suggesting that you speak to Kevin, who has all the information, because I turned it over to him, and I turned him over my information, because and I don't have that information anymore, because I was very specific when I turned them over to him. You're in charge now. I have no reason to keep this. We did the research. Now it's up to you to talk to the town board or whatever. And I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, I was confused when he said COPS program, but for the RMS for the station, there was some research that was done by Ira and also Bruce. And I did speak to Bruce, and we have spoken that if we do want to do any more research, they're happy to work along with us. Right now, I know one of our big things that we're going to be discussing, not tonight, but in the near future,
Right.
is the hardware that we need to talk about, the server.
The server.
Right.
I thought we were gonna
had
do that
nothing
at
to do with
town
what we were
board
doing,
meeting.
the hardware.
We can do it at any meeting we want to do it at. It's not on the agenda for the police commission meeting.
Right, it's not on the agenda.
So if you want to put it on the agenda for a town board meeting, we can.
Right. Well, because I'm already familiar with what their
I'm sorry, I
desires
have
were.
to get a
Well,
little closer if it's okay.
Not a problem at all. I don't know if you want to sit in Kevin's chair and pretend to.
No.
And I think that actually, well, we could talk about it at the police commission. I guess I'll let the chief decide where he would do it. We could talk about it at the police commission first, but ultimately, I think it should go to the town board table to be decided upon.
Well, it has to, it should, well, it probably will, because right now, the potential, as I understand it, is that there might be where we might take the server from the police department, bring it to the town, and then get them a new server, because I think we need a new server at some point too. So it's all a part of a bigger plan for computers, so let's put this on for another time.
Yeah, May's done a lot of work, and
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
server
I
would be
remember.
good for something smaller, but for everything that we run, you just need something bigger. But
Yeah, there's a couple of things computer-wise that we need to do, so. But thank you, Ira.
If I may,
Sure.
your IT person
Yes,
was sitting in at some of those meetings, which is why we got involved. We didn't get
Right.
involved in equipment, but the point
Right.
was, she's the one who said you needed more equipment, whatever.
Right.
And
right.
the
Right.
program was designed for that. Just wanted to let
Great.
you know. We did talk to your IT person also.
Terrific. Anybody, you want to have anything?
Yeah, I don't know if Becca, does the justice still need a larger server
Well,
capacity?
I was told by Arlene that I actually was approved for a server, and my server is about to crash right now.
Okay.
So
I didn't
I
know
Well, you
that
weren't
were-
approved, you were approved for a.
In the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, we are in the process of
Okay,
getting
because
the
I remember
purchase
that,
order
and
right
I
now.
think that was part of the original
The
swap
was going to
idea.
be, was.
But both
Okay.
my fans have
So,
shut down at this
but,
point, so.
Yeah, see, they're in a,
Crisis,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
which is why I think it got approved immediately, didn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Very happy about that.
Okay, is there anybody else from the public who would like to speak? Okay, with that, we will get into the meeting. So the first thing we have is if all of our officers could move up closer so they could be on camera instead of off camera, and maybe come over here. If everybody who's here, everybody.
That's Patrick.
Is there a reason?
Come on.
Come on.
I leave at a moment's notice, so I don't want to be...
Okay,
That's fine.
okay.
he's just
Nobody.
being shy back there.
Okay, is everybody here?
I think he really just
Okay,
doesn't want to be on
so
camera.
first I'm going to read the resolution, and then I'm going to do the plaque award. But what we're doing tonight is we're honoring our police force for an amazing job they did on a very, very, very difficult situation. I think anybody who's a parent knows that a loss of a child in of itself is just horrific. Even you don't have to be a parent to basically go to a scene of a child that's been harmed in any way, no less killed, and understand the impact that it must have. And so we wanted to take a few moments to really recognize the outstanding service of the Town of New Paltz Police Department in the case of the Asia Perez Medina homicide. So first I'll read the resolution, and then what I'm going to do is ask each board member to sign it here. And this is an official one with the seal, and we'll sign one for the town, and we'll sign one for the police department to have, and we should probably get a nice little cover to put these in. Whereas on June 20th, 2012, the New Paltz Police Dispatch received an emergency call to report a missing child. And whereas within minutes, the New Paltz police officers arrived at the subject's premises, and whereas the officers discovered 2-year-old Asia Perez Medina deceased, the result of a criminal act, and whereas from the investigation at the scene and throughout judicial proceedings, including a trial, the men and women of the New Paltz Police Department who investigated the homicide displayed exceptional proficiency leading to the conviction and of the perpetrator, and be it resolved on behalf of the entire New Paltz community, the New Paltz Town Board hereby extends its appreciation and recognition to the men and women of the New Paltz Police Department for their determination in bringing about justice to this tragic and difficult case. And I don't think a resolution or a plaque even begins to say how much of a gratitude we have as a community. But what I'd like to do is I'll sign this and then ask each board member,
And I think we need to move that, correct? So,
if you want to do it as an official move, sure.
and I'd like to move the resolution.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is
I
Jeff,
just want to pass your pen on. I think
Sure.
we all use the same color there.
so,
Yes, sir.
we come over here. And start by saying that we wish we didn't have to do this. Okay? And this is not something we want to do, and this is something that we wish we didn't have to do. But it did happen, and it happened in our town, and we just don't want you guys to think that we don't appreciate what you've done, what we went through. I know how incredibly difficult it was for all of you on the trial. I've heard it, I've gotten feedback. I want you also to know that Holly Conwright, the district attorney, wrote a letter on all of your behalf talking about the outstanding job that you've all done. And we just, now that the town board is a police commission, we have the honor of being able to do this. We would have done it as a town board either, but the police commission and the town board would like to give a plaque in recognition of the outstanding service to the community of New Paltz in the Asia Perez Medina homicide investigation. Their dedication and professionalism resulted in the arrest and conviction of the person responsible for her death on June 20th, 2012, and is presented by the New Paltz Town Board today, April 7th, 2014. So if you want to get a quick look at the plaque, which I will thank the chief for helping me to put together. And so on behalf of the entire town board, thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know if anybody from the board would like to say anything.
No, I just want to say, I hope again that we never go through this again. And one of the most amazing things was reading, I'm very sorry you had to go through, and several of you had to go through the court and hearing firsthand how it went in the courtroom. And I hope none of you have to go through that ever again. I know it was traumatic just being there. Some of you are more used to it than others. But then have to relive it later in the court is something most people can't handle. And I just want to say I appreciate everything you guys do, and that was just a tremendous effort. And again, to Susan's point, we got reports back that it's just incredible how you all acted in the courtroom and having to give very difficult testimony. So thank you. We do appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'm not going to give this to you because I'm going to wait for Kevin Barry to have the honor to sign this, so you can get a complete one from the town board. So,
Thank you.
I also want to just add that not only
We never do this again.
is this award being presented
Yes.
tonight, the Ulster County Chiefs Association, they have an annual award ceremony. And Holly Conrad actually put a award in for our agency as well.
thank you, thank you.
As a department, we felt that an award for our agency alone was not appropriate because of all the other agencies that assisted us, including the District Attorney's Office, the Family Violence Unit, the Sheriff's Department, and the State Police. So when the award nomination was put forward, we put it forward as a team award, and there will be a team award given out on May 6th. So if anybody's looking for tickets to attend, I know I talked to the town board, it'd be great to have the support and people come to that as well. But there will be a team award because without working with other agencies, that's what makes it possible in our community, is the teamwork that we have together, and it's something that we're very proud of. So thank you guys, thank you all.
And I think if anybody from the board can attend, it would be really nice for us to show our support at the dinner. So,
I'll certainly try to make it.
so if everybody lets me know, we'll reserve seats with the chief. So just let me
You said
know.
May 6th.
May 6th.
May 6th. Yeah, I believe it's a Tuesday. Tuesday.
Okay, and so now, the next thing on the agenda is actually, one of the things that when the town board took over as a police commission, Councilman Logan had made a recommendation that a lot of other towns, when we hire a new officer, that they basically bring the officer to the town board and introduce them to the board and then introduce them to the community, which was a really, really great idea because actually when I was last week at a PBA meeting and I looked around and realized there were some officers that I don't even know. And, so the idea of basically, having them come and meet us and for us to be able to welcome them to the community and get it on TV is a really nice idea. So now that the town board is a police commission, we are now officially instituting this policy, and so I will turn it over to the chief to introduce 2 new potential officers to our department that we're delighted to meet tonight.
Thank you. Travis Merritt. We'll do one at a time, or actually we'll do both. Augustus Carson, come on up. We have 2 new part-time officers that we'd like to present to the board for your approval. Travis and Augustus. We went through a very long period of time with doing their background, which is pretty intense, and it takes a lot of time to get it completed, not because of anything bad, of course, but because we want to, cover all of our bases to make sure we're hiring some very dedicated and good officers. And I believe we have found these 2, and I believe they're going to be an asset to our community and our department. Travis has just over a year experience as a police officer in Dutchess County, so we're happy to have him on board on our side of the river. Augustus has 4 years experience in police work with extensive background in corrections for the state, 27 years if I may add, with a lot of training and background also that will be a big asset to our agency. So happy to say that their backgrounds were completed successfully, and I present them to the board for your approval to hire. And if it's approved, we'll take care of the swearing in this week and get their training started.
Okay, great. I feel like the old Roman, times where, you're presenting them to the board. So I guess, would anybody like to ask any questions or?
No.
Okay, then with that, I guess what I would like to do is have a motion by the town board to approve of the 2 new police officers, Augustus Carson and Travis Merrick, to our police force, and I'd like a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second, and do we need to put in, just to be hired at the contractual rate? Does that have to be put in there, or?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's just add to the
For a
motion.
part-time officer.
For hiring the contractual rate of a part-time officer. If I may add that as.
Okay.
I can't wait.
So
Put him on bar night. Break him in this weekend. Look at Travis, he's ready.
He's
Got
ready.
it.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just
All in
discussion I
favor?
gave you. No?
All
Aye.
in favor? Aye. Motion so carried.
Aye.
Welcome to the New Paltz Police Force.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Paltz Police. Thank you.
Now you have to stop by when you're in uniform.
I have to say, they are biting at the bit to get started. They're ready, and but we had to wait till everything was completed for the
Okay.
backgrounds, and it's happy to have them here tonight.
Okay, great.
Thank you
So
very
Could
now,
have taken a shortcut for board members too. Hire who
That would go over really well, wouldn't it?
Well, we'd have to take it.
we have good experience taking people to ethics committees. No, we're
So I appreciate that you didn't try to manipulate the situation.
Actually,
We went down that road.
You want them to get a picture of you and the chief, the
Okay,
2
well,
ones that they want to leave?
You wanna
Okay,
do
come on,
that?
yeah,
Just
sure.
maybe the chief
Yeah.
and those 2, just real quick,
Sure.
just get a
Yeah.
quick photo, and then Dan will send that into the papers for us.
I can do that.
And if any of the board members want to join me,
No,
let's
You know, he's so
Yeah.
well.
The 2 new officers.
No, I do it all.
I don't know what to do with a
That's
23.
why they pay me the big bucks.
Okay.
So I used to be the one with the camera all the time.
All right.
So why don't we have?
Go
You
from
want me in the middle?
tallest to.
Oh, there's
No,
three
I-
of us.
no idea. Dan, do you need that?
We're good.
Oh, yeah, we're good. All right, so just look at me, smile, take a few. Hold on.
You want to take the camera?
Get rid of that one.
Thank you.
The yellow out.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dan.
No problem, guys.
And we did that so if you need to leave or anything, we didn't want to.
Yes.
You don't have to stay.
Yeah, we
But,
just wanted to. Thank you. Thank
Poor
you,
guys,
Dan.
they get sworn in and all of a sudden we're at the police department and they, right? Okay, so the next thing we have is a resolution for a waiver for the civil service exam age limit. So what this is about is, if you remember, well,
Spoke about it.
we
last
spoke about it at the
meeting.
last
Yeah.
meeting, right? And so what we were doing, we were asked to request home rule from our legislators, and we got back a letter from both of our legislators with a bunch of paperwork that I have to fill out and sign, which you're going to authorize me in a few minutes to do. If we wonder why the state is so...
Fun for you.
I said we make Gene do it first of
So-
all.
Well, the fact that, first of all, we have to request home rule, we have to go through getting home rule, the legislators have to put the bills in, we have to approve it, they've got to send it to Home Rule Council, they've got to go through a whole process, and this is just basically to waive an age limit, and you wonder why taxes are so high in New York State. So, anyway, and I have to fill all this stuff out after you authorize it.
I say it's 2 copies of each one of those.
Yes, it's 2 copies to go to the Senate Home Rule Council, to the Assembly Home Rule Council, and then the second one to the Senate Home Rule Council and the Assembly Home Rule Council.
So I would like
So-
to make a motion to adopt the
Well,
resolution.
what I'm going to do is read the resolution
Oh, you
first.
have to read the whole thing?
Well, I'm not reading this, I had to write a resolution.
I-
These are all the
All
same
right.
as we
Okay,
did. I didn't do that.
so resolution of the New Paltz Town Board requesting,
On camera.
what? We'll let the people know what we're passing. Resolution of the New Paltz Town Board requesting home rule legislation for authorization of Ronald J. Stroh to take the competitive civil service examination for the position of police officer in the town of New Paltz. Whereas Officer Ronald J. Stroh, and I'll drop his birthday, presently serves in the Army Reserves and has served our country for 12 years. Whereas Officer Stroh was deployed to Iraq from 2004 through 2005, and then deployed most recently to Afghanistan in 2011 through 2012. Whereas Officer Stroh received several awards, Army Commendation Medal, 4 Army Achievement Medals, numerous service medals, a Combat Action Badge while in Iraq, and a Combat Infantry Badge while in Afghanistan. Whereas Officer Ronald J. Stroh is currently a part-time officer with the New Paltz Police Department. Whereas Officer Ronald J. Stroh would be an asset to the New Paltz Police Department as a full-time police officer. Whereas civil service guidelines have an age limit on the test for making him eligible for service exam for full-time employment. Be it resolved that the New Paltz Town Board supports S6802 and A9099, those are the Assembly and Senate bills, be voted on and approved in the New York State Legislature to allow the waiver of the age limit for Officer Ronald J. Stroh to take the Ulster County Civil Service Full-Time Police Officers Test. So, this way the public knows why we're asking for this. The officer obviously has served our country well and now wants to continue to serve in the New Paltz Police Department. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment?
So moved.
The resolution.
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried.
Happy
And
to
now
do
I
it.
would just like a motion to authorize me to sign all the paperwork.
Actually, we just did, I just read that. It just requires a 2/3 vote,
Okay.
which you did, so
Okay,
yeah,
good.
we're fine. So
Okay,
we
good.
just authorized you to do it.
Okay,
doing
terrific.
that, yeah.
Okay, so, done? 2 meetings. Pretty good, huh? Okay, so, next we have what we added onto the agenda, which was, everybody remembers correctly, that when Wilmerite first came around as a project, and they were talking to all of our emergency services, they requested from the chief a letter basically supporting the fact that they didn't believe that he didn't believe there would be an impact on the policing services for the town of New Paltz. When the chief was asked to write this letter, he was told that the SUNY police would basically police the campus of Wilmerite, and they never asked him about the impact of the downtown and the impact that this 700 students coming into our community would have on the downtown at night. They never asked that. So the chief wrote a letter basically saying, I concur that there won't be much impact, because he was talking about the impact of our New Paltz police to go to the Wilmerite apartment complex that was supposed to be being policed by SUNY police officers. We all know that that is not true, that the SUNY police officers can't go there, and it will be our New Paltz police if this project should go through. We also know that there will be a very big impact on the downtown in terms of our police needs downtown when 700 new students go in at night to our downtown. The police commission under Ira Margolis's able work did an extensive, well, you were the one who really did it all, did an extensive study that showed that it would be about $275,000 a year, with a little bit with the rescue squad and the rescue squad and the fire department, but mostly police costs. And that number was sort of backed up by an independent person that the town had hired that came up with similar numbers. What has happened at all of the meetings with Park Point, up at the county and with the IDA and with the planning board, they keep bringing up the chief's letter. So when we talk about the impact fees to the town of New Paltz in this pilot negotiation, Wilma Wright keeps talking about the police chief's letter saying there is no impact. Well, we know that not to be true, and so I went back and asked the chief if he would please put on record, after hearing a number of times at a number of meetings Wilma Wright reading this letter. I said to the chief, you need to respond and put on record what you believe. So the chief gave me this letter. I left it tonight for the planning board for it to go into the record for the planning board meeting tonight, where they'll be discussing Wilma Wright, but I'd like to read this into the minutes also. To Dear Miss Rachel Selsky, which is who the chief was asked to write the first letter to. I would like to address and clarify a letter that was written to you in February 2012 that discussed the potential impact that the student housing project located on SUNY New Paltz campus on Route 32 would have on our agency, the Town of New Paltz Police Department. I understand that this letter has been used during recent meetings to give the belief that I presently see no impact on the department as a result of this project. I have to say that I am very disappointed in the, quote, spin of words, and feel that your company misled this agency as well as many others in the community. If you recall, during the meetings we had at the beginning of 2012, prior to this letter, my concern was always that I did not believe that the SUNY Police Department would have the jurisdiction to cover this off-campus property and project. Over and over again, you and your company assured me that SUNY PD could and would be the primary responder. You then requested the original letter with my understanding that SUNY PD will handle all calls to the property and would simply be their backup for assistance. Also, you requested the letter stating that the department was able to handle responses to that project location. You did not ask about the off-site impacts that the significant increase in student population would have on the department or the town, that it understood that our agency will be the main department responding to calls. I find it disturbing that now that you and your company would continue to use a letter that was based on mistaken assumptions and an incomplete query about the impacts of this project would have on our resources. I would also like to state at this time that I have had an opportunity to review the CGR report, and I concur with the findings as indicated in the report. The impact of this project will put a burden on our agency, manpower, and equipment. I am familiar with the testimony that was provided by members of our police commission during the public hearings and believe they fairly described the impacts of our department and the cost of staffing and equipment that will be needed to address those impacts. Finally, the methodology your report uses is focused on calls for service. While that captures a response to events, it does not take into account the substantial efforts required to implement proactive community policing initiatives, especially in the downtown business district. Proactive policing allows the department to prevent events, which is especially important in the downtown area where the students and others congregate on evenings, weekends, and during the summer months. When proactive policing is used effectively, there are far fewer calls. For the future, feel free to use this letter during your meetings. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact me. Respectfully signed, Joe Schneider, Police Chief. And Joe did sign the
I think that's a much better
original.
letter than the one they tried to use.
Now, Joe did sign the original letter. I just made copies off of the computer, but why don't you sign a couple of these so we have a, do you want to say anything, Joe?
Well, just that, and the letter really did a very nice job reading it, by the way.
Thank you.
I'd have to put my glasses on now that I'm resorting to that.
Well, you are bragging about them.
I know. I hope it brings out my eyes a little bit.
I
At any rate, as it says, when I first had met with them, sorry about that, when they initially started coming around, they were telling us that it was SUNY Police that would be handling the project and the location. Right from the beginning, I couldn't understand how, but they assured me over and over again. They assured the town board over and over again. And when I was asked to write that initial letter, it was just in regards to, responding to that location with the understanding that we were the backup, which, as we back SUNY up now, the calls for service is not that great on campus. So with that being said, there wasn't a big impact that we saw. Once it was confirmed, my beliefs that we indeed are going to be, it's going to be in our jurisdiction and our responsibility. And then meeting with the UPass Commission, talking about the additional impacts, not just the location, but also what the impact is going to be with pedestrian traffic back and forth from that location to the bars, house parties potentially. The impact grew greatly. We put together an idea of how many officers we felt we would need based on that, planning on adding an officer per shift. So with that, of course, they did their study. Their study didn't come back exactly with those numbers, but definitely more than what we have now. Like I said, I concur with their report. And once I heard that they were reading the old letter over and over again, to say the least, I'm disappointed with the fact that they would put a spin to words like that and use it for their convenience, knowing what impact it's going to have on our community. So I'm happy to write this letter, and I'm looking forward to seeing if they actually read it.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I spoke with the attorney, George Lithgow. I let him know I was leaving it in the box for Kelly. I asked them to please give it to the planning board tonight for the record. And on Wednesday morning, when I go to the IDA meeting where this is on the agenda, I will read this into the record at the IDA meeting Wednesday morning.
Can you do it in 3 minutes?
Well, if you'll be there, I can hand it off to you. And why Dan says that is because at the last meeting...
Dan can speed read?
No, what happened at the last meeting was I had a statement that I made on behalf of the town board in regards to the IDA and whatever we were up to most recently. I don't remember. I've been there so much. So I had something, and like I say at the very beginning, when they hold you to 3 minutes, I always say, well, I'm speaking for 5 people, so I need 15 minutes because I have a lot to say. Normally they give me the time, but this time, for whatever reason, I think they just decided to try to hold it. So I was reading, and I hadn't finished, and they tried to stop me. Now, first, let me just point out, they would have never have stopped me, okay? And I would never have sat down, and they would have had to talk over me and pull me out, but regardless, what happened was while they were trying to stop me, and I said, I have more to say, Dan, who was there, said, I will finish up, I'd like my 3 minutes, and I will finish reading. So I handed over my statement to Dan, and then Dan tried to read the rest of what I said, and he did an absolute wonderful job. I will say that somebody took your picture when you were reading it. They didn't take my picture. But that's okay. We all know that everybody's got their agendas. But anyway, so Dan ended up finishing reading the statement, so it got read. And there was a little bit of drama, and it was great. But it was really funny because Dan basically leaned over and he goes, Susan, I'll take it, I'll finish it. And he goes, okay, I'd like to speak now. And then he got up and he continued reading.
Very diplomatic.
Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of teamwork.
It was a very good move. It was a very good move. And Dan, partly afterwards I said to Dan, you shouldn't have done it because I would have liked to see them pull me off, to pull me out. It would have been a great story.
Drag her down.
But it was good. It was good.
Supervisors are tased for.
Right, exactly. But anyway, I think, can I do this in 3 minutes?
I think you can do it.
If not, will you be there Wednesday
I will
morning?
be there Wednesday morning.
Okay,
so-
then maybe you'll just get up and read, you know what, I have a great idea. Why don't you get up and read the same thing?
Yeah.
And just in case you don't understand the impact, I'd like to read a letter from our police chief that basically takes all the lies that were read for the, how about that? Anyway, we'll have fun.
Well, thank
Okay.
you for
Summarize.
thank you for doing that though. That's really great.
Yes, okay.
Least I can
great-
do, because like I said, I feel betrayed by actually how they portrayed my initial letter based on what they had said at the beginning, and it's unfortunate that they do that. It just takes that much more credibility out of what they're trying to do here.
Oh, that's for sure. Okay, so moving right along, now to get into the meat and potatoes, the monthly report. Does anybody have, so was it a lot easier to do this monthly report?
So far, so good.
So, does anybody have anything they'd like to ask or say or comment on relative to the report?
I usually just read the accommodation letters.
Go ahead.
And then I'll go over the defensive action.
Sure.
There's only one report of defensive action. 2 accommodation letters.
Is this new?
Oh my gosh, I always thought it was the town board that was giving me the headache, but apparently I needed glasses. I'm joking.
Actually, it must have been the police commission that gave you that headache, because that's who you used to meet with.
Okay, here we go. The first one is from the district attorney's office, and it's in regards to Joe Judge, Detective Joe Judge. This is when he was in the detective position. He was handling a case of an assault involving a slashing. The amazing part of this, he's just saying the nice work that was done by the detective. And I just want to read one part of this especially. It says, in the case that was presented to grand jury, he witnessed something that he never saw before in 10 years as being a prosecutor. Detective Judge testified to the steps taken investigating and responded to many of the questions of the grand jurors. At conclusion of the testimony, the grand jurors actually applauded him as he left and told him what a great job he did. In addition to this, the jurors actually wanted to charge the suspect as a homicide, the attempt of a homicide, rather than the assault first that he was charged with. And a lot of it had to do with his testimony, describing the incident, describing what occurred to the T, and the investigative work that went into it. So it was very nice to see a letter like this, congratulating him and thanking him, and hearing that a jury would actually applaud the work of the detective is just phenomenal.
The defense attorney must not have been very happy.
You have to appreciate that. The next one is for Officer Calvin Halstead. He's still here? You went on the road, okay. This one was from a Christmas Eve. He assisted a motorist who slid off the roadway going up to Mohawk Mountain House. Just wanted to say thank you and expressed his professionalism and caring aided until the tow truck arrived was much appreciated. So again, just another nice letter. It's nice when people write compliments to officers for the work that they do. Mm-hmm. We may think that it's work that we do every day and part of our job, so when it's recognized, it is a nice little extra for the members. For the month February, we only had one defensive action report. 2 reports were filed on it, involving a 22-year-old male, Hispanic, 5'6", 175 pounds, large build. He was charged with disorderly conduct and ultimately resisting arrest. I was told that he was under arrest for disorderly conduct during an altercation. When the first officer attempted to put him into custody, he pulled away and took an aggressive stance. One officer took the subject to the ground in an armbar, attempted to handcuff him, still struggling and fighting with the officer. Second officer used his asp and gave a strike to his thigh area, at which time he complied. He was handcuffed without any further incident. There was no injury involved. And that's all for defensive action.
Okay, so is there anything else in the report that you want to talk about?
That's all I have. Any questions on the report?
No, there's
Now, the
no
only-
pending personal
the
complaints,
only-
0.
The only feedback I've gotten, which is, it was positive feedback from some residents down in the Pencil Hill, Water Street area, and Chestnut. Apparently you've stepped up your quality of life down there. There's been several issues of noise, excessive noise, that have been happening down there, and apparently tickets are being issued, and so let's keep following those up and see where those lead. And if you think there's an issue where they end up at, let us know either as the police commissioner or as the town board, because I had a couple residents in that area come and, as you know, I have a shop down there.
Yes.
Wanted to say, make sure I pass on a thank you, that it's obvious that a quality of life initiative is taking place in that area, which is interesting because it's all within walking distance to a sign that says, please respect your neighbor. This is a
I
neighborhood.
have one of those too.
Yeah, does it
Yeah.
work?
No.
Well, apparently
No.
Joe is having his officers make them work because there have
Church Street.
tickets issued in that whole area.
And we have issued a lot of noise ordinance tickets.
And I think we want to follow up with you. I think, we think we need to do, and this will take more discussion, I think we need to start looking at the owners of the properties and start looking into, there are many college communities that have a fee schedule, that when there's multiple quality of life complaints.
Is that police or is that building?
The village is still looking at updating the noise ordinance, which is going to include holding landlords more accountable. So, another hat. So I know that's been discussed actually for years, where things have been thrown around and talking about the noise meter being used again. And now they're looking at another law that comes from another college community. I've spoken to the chief recently, for some more input in regards to, there's something what they call like a 3 strikes, for a landlord where notification's made. We do have a downtown concern group that will meet with the supervisor, representatives from the Bar Association, landlords, community members, and we've been discussing, things and different actions that we're taking. I know some of the landlords were making comment at the last meeting that, he wasn't notified till a couple weeks later. Looking at the computer entries on it, he was notified 2 days afterwards.
Sure.
So, we're doing our job and our responsibility to cite the individuals and make notification. And, it's just a matter of time where hopefully it starts to change a little bit. The signs that were posted around the village, although they may not work, they may work a couple times. Instead of 10 people yelling, you might only have 8, and hopefully that'll grow. I actually brought that idea back from, I was down in Mamaroneck and I noticed the
Yeah,
sign.
I thought they were gonna be bigger. See, that's the thing.
Well, that's what we need, we
They're-
just need bigger signs.
they're much
Big
smaller
ones, so
than
when
I
they walk down the road, it
imagined.
bangs in the head.
Well, I don't want it to bang anybody in the head. It's just that, they're the size of a parking sign. And you're right, if they were bigger than that, but the visualization of the one from Mamaroneck was okay, unless that was right at that harbor park. Because then it would have been in the park.
That's down the roadways down there around.
But if it was on the
bar area.
street,
That
then
was on the
somebody
street.
walking, because they have more sidewalks than we do.
Mhm. Yeah.
So my concern about the house, I don't know if you know already, because you said you spoke to the chief in the other college community. So if we had something like that, the 3 strikes rule, there's got to be like a legal type thing. So 3 strikes, that could happen pretty quickly around here. So, but somebody owns the house. Like, how do you legally say, okay, so now your opportunity to rent has just ended? I mean, is there really a legal way to do that?
Well, there's a legal way to fine.
A fine.
Is it?
And
Yeah.
also, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we need to talk about this more. I don't know if we need a decibel meter, because I think I remember reading one of the reports that sometimes it seems to be escalates. It goes from noise, and then there can be an escalation in how some of the people react to being asked to quiet down. So I don't know if it always needs
Well,
to
that's
be a
usually when you
noise.
disperse a party,
Right.
then they tend to be noisy as they're walking away.
Mhm.
And we talked about that, you have 4 officers working and they're tied up on different things, and somebody goes and they break up a party. We can't sit there and monitor every single person that's scattering out of there. And you're right, if they're annoyed that they're being broken up from their party, they're gonna be loud on their way out. You have to identify who the person is, which makes it difficult. Some people that come to these meetings don't understand that concept, and they say, well, just ticket them all. The justice system doesn't work that way. Sometimes we wish it did. But the same token, I think the officers have been doing a really, really good job with being on top of this. Depending on what happens with the village ordinance, if they do change it, from what the other chief from that community says, he indicated that they have not had to use the 3 strike provision yet, because the landlords seem to be more on top of the people because that law exists.
Did we get a copy of that? Have we gotten
Yes.
a copy of that
Mhm.
law?
Yep, if you'd like to get a copy, I
Yeah.
can send it to you.
Yeah. We
It's,
give it that
Genesis-
to- we
yeah,
just
no,
take-
you
we
can
just-
distribute
to the board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we
I'd love to
distribute, then we
see
can
that.
look at it and see.
Sure.
Just the downtown concern that group that's meeting, that the chief's talking about, it actually came out of Ellen Rocco and a bunch of downtown residents having meetings talking about the noise and what to do about the noise. And Amy Cohn had mentioned something to me, so I had asked to go to the meeting. And when we were talking, I said to them, you know what, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. When I had been supervisor the time before, that we had a lot of problems downtown. It was really out of hand. And Ray Schwartz and Robin Cohn from the college had done incredible work, with us working together with Mayor Nyquist, myself, and other community members. So we convened a meeting, bringing in Robin and Ray, bringing in Dave Dugackin, the chief. We brought in some of the bar owners, the landlords, and some of the residents. And we've been meeting since. We've had like 4 or 5 meetings now. And it's a really active group, and good stuff is coming out of it. And out of the very first meeting, because the college PD can only come off campus so far, they can come down on Plattekill a little bit. But what they did was right before school started, and Dave Dugackin went back to the campus and actually made sure that towards the later parts of the evening that a lot of the officers were down around the Plattekill area. So therefore, if the students were coming back and they were really loud or noisy, that they could sort of deal with it at that point. And then our officers spent more time down there too. And so from the very beginning of the school year, they started to sort of impact a type of behavior that was expected. And actually a rape was stopped on Plattekill because of Dave moving the officers down, and there was an attempted rape, and because the officers were in proximity, they were able to stop it. And so then out of that came the bar owners, and I haven't been in the bars at 2 o'clock in the morning, I haven't been in the bars at all. I haven't even been to P&G's for lunch, so I can't tell you, but if anybody's been in there, there's these new signs that have been put up that basically say, respect your neighbors, you're part of a neighborhood when you leave the bar, please be quiet, and remember that they're, your neighbors, are there, so they put these signs up, just like I think last week, if I remember correctly. And then there's a whole campaign that's sort of getting started right now that's being planned, that's gonna start to work with getting like the beer companies and stuff, making these coasters and these napkins at the bars that talk about being a good neighbor in New Paltz, and creating a whole campaign that's in the midst of being worked on in terms of trying to sort of take this whole issue of being quiet, respecting your neighbors, not letting things escalate kind of stuff. So it's being taken on, and so it's nice, Jeff, that it's, people are noticing it.
Yeah, people are noticing, so.
Yeah.
And the tavern owners are working with us, with the community too, so all working together with the college and the town and the village.
I saw you just had a big kickoff with the tips training again, where they all signed.
Oh, that was the tavern owner
Tavern
agreement.
owners
Yes.
agreement.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
So that was the
just
tavern-
that was being renewed? 'Cause
That was
15 years ago.
that started 15 years ago, and
Yeah.
again, that started when, do you remember when, was it the Griffin that was, where the Japanese restaurant is?
Yeah.
And at that time, what was happening was a lot of the gangs were first forming, and the gangs from the cities around us were trying to decide who was going to get territory over New Paltz, and things were really out of hand. And it's funny, I was going through a bunch of articles this weekend, and I found tons of articles back from that time where things were really out of hand, and things were getting dangerous, and people getting slashed, and people coming from all over, and the crime was getting really intense. And so after some threats and whatever and different stuff, the bar owners came together, and that's when they created the tavern owners agreement, that they would all self-police themselves, and they wouldn't do the all-you-can-drink contest, the wet T-shirt contest, and all the kinds of stuff that they did to, like, get people to come in. And so they signed it 15 years ago, and a couple of years later, actually, the crime really did drop, and things really quieted down. And it's been really successful. It's 15 years now, and so all the tavern owners just re-signed it last week at the college. They just re-signed their agreement to it. And what's amazing, when McGillicuddy's first came in, I remember one morning I was driving somewhere, and I heard an all-you-can-drink ad on the radio. So I went right into, I was a legislator at the time, I wasn't even a supervisor, and I went into P&G's, Mike Beck. I went into Mike and I said, Mike, don't we still have the tavern owners agreement? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, I heard McGillicuddy's ad. So he went and spoke to McGillicuddy's, got them on board, and now Shea O'Brien has just come in, and Shea O'Brien is now a part of the tavern owners agreement. They're there, they signed on. So the tavern owners are really taking it seriously, and they're really doing a pretty good job self-regulating, and things have been, quote, quieter, from then.
That
That's for
definitely
sure.
helps out. It definitely helps out. And, working together again, that's the only way you're going to keep things in control. And when things start to, you go through waves, just like I was talking about the one assault where there was a slashing, and you just pick up different type of strategies as we do our patrol, working with probation, parole, other agencies that will assist us, and we attack those issues hard and push people back.
The bars are also, they're implementing, and I don't know if they started, they were implementing a one less drink, where the bars are going to promote, at the end, just don't have that one less drink, this one less drink. And so actually, I think we're thinking of coming up with a sort of soft drink that's a New Paltz soft drink, like, some kind of fizzy drink that they give you instead at the very end. And so that's sort of in play right now. And Jeff, you can serve it at the cheese shop.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
So anyway, anybody have anything else on the report? Nope.
I saw you
Okay.
guys a lot out in town a lot on St. Patrick's Day, which I thought was great. Just that there was a nice presence there on Main Street.
We any type of a holiday that maybe will push a little bit more drinking, we beef up our patrols a little bit, and we use the DWI task force funds put a couple of officers on the street also for that, so thank you.
Were you out drinking?
I was not out drinking.
And actually, Joe, I guess we'll hear it next month, though, but thank you also for a large cocaine bust.
Oh,
Made
yes.
all the papers.
You want to say something about it?
Just recently, that was the one from a couple of days ago you were
Someone
referring to.
one of my favorite ones that you get to witness in New Paltz, the
Yeah.
driving the wrong way.
Yeah. We had, they
I
had
saw
some
that.
synthetic marijuana also, and a decent amount of cocaine. So we're looking at possibly seizing the car, looking at that, a little bit of cash that was taken, not a whole lot, but, you know, anytime you have a drug arrest, where that's a possibility, before anything's released, we do a nice check and see if we have that possibility for seizure.
And just from a guy ignoring a one-way sign.
The best drug arrests are when, you know, they have
That's
something like a
fine.
taillight out, because they don't always know it. They can, you know, make sure they drive better, you know, hopefully not speed or whatever, but they don't know they have a taillight out or whatever, and sometimes you get your best arrest that way.
We'll get some good seized assets out of that.
That'd be nice.
Yes, cash would be good.
Okay, so MOU, SUNY New Paltz. This was probably more important, but it's still important, when the SUNY police officers were allowed to come off campus and back up our police. We had a memorandum of understanding of, you know, how it all operated. And when I was going through a lot of papers, I found an old MOU, and I brought it to the chief and said, well, A, things have changed now, but regardless, you know, they still do come and do backup, so, you know, should we be signing this MOU? So the chief took it, and I'll turn it over to you.
I sent a letter to Chief DeGacken, Dave DeGacken. He's gonna be setting up a meeting with the supervisor, myself, somebody, a representative from the college as well, so we can update that. We've had them, they've been signed a few different times. The last one was signed in 2009. I think I'm the only one actually active right now on that MOU. So we're going to.
Did we say something?
Must have
Chase
been.
them all out.
Oh, chief, you can clear a room.
I think they're sitting there saying, hey, wait, we don't need it for this anymore. At any rate, so we're setting up a meeting so we can discuss it. There has been some changes on what SUNY can do coming off campus. Not that there's really been change in the law, it's just that they're kind of abiding what the CPL talks about with how they can come off campus and what they can actually do or not do. But the big thing that is in effect, and that's why it's important to sign it still, is there's an understanding on when we do have an emergency and we need their assistance, you know, the protocols that are in place for that assistance with each other. So it's very important to, you know, sit down, sign it again, and just kind of work through the little bit of the fine areas that maybe need a little tweaking, so to speak. So as soon as we get some dates together, hopefully within the next week or so, we may have the dates and we'll confirm and.
Okay,
we'll have a
but we
meeting.
can't do it as a signing, you know, well, we can review it, go through it, but then I have to bring it
Bring
back
it
to the
back,
board, for
yes.
the board to authorize me to sign it.
So we have to meet though
Yes,
within the next
yeah,
couple of weeks and
yeah.
talk about whatever the issues that we may see.
Right.
If you want, I can actually make copies to give everybody to review what the old one was.
Mhm.
And if you have questions on it, then we can even be prepared to
Mhm.
talk to SUNY about it.
Do you have any redlining that you want to do on it already?
Not really. You know, I think the big question that comes into play is, you know, now that they can't assist us with like parades and things of that
Mhm.
nature. Although they did assist in the Little League parade because it went on their roadway in that area. So they were able to give us a couple people. That was a big help. So, you know, but just, you know, I think just fine tuning it a little bit like that because of what they can or can't do is important.
So if you're going to send it out, I'd like to see any comments you have on it.
Okay.
So if you're going to send it, even if you put them on it, or if you want to redline it, or if you just want to put it in the body of an email.
Okay,
Just,
yeah, that'll be
see-
fine.
Just to see what your thoughts
I'll
are.
be giving you the next commission report probably within next week, so I'll attach that to it as well, just for your review. And like I said, I'll go through it and I'll,
I mean, the interesting thing will be to see how much they can no longer do. That's gonna be the interesting thing, you know, and, you know, again, you know, some of us went through great work in order to get the SUNY police officers to be peace officers, to be police officers, because we wanted them to help us downtown.
Right.
And, you know, Tom Nyquist, myself, a lot of college supervisors and mayors worked to do that. And so we got it, it happened, they came, they were a great help, and so some of us take it as a real insult that like, the union now is not letting them come down and help us, and, you know, let's remember.
It feels like that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, also understand, they have more police officers than we do. They have
I
27
know.
officers to our 21. you know, and they stay on that campus, and we have all this extra manpower for downtown at night when the kids are down there to keep them safe, so it's a, you know, a little bit of a sore subject.
Yes, it is.
But anyway, so yeah, let's get that going. Okay, disposal of old car equipment.
Yes, we have, we first started the program of videos in our vehicles in 2001, I believe, 2002. The first ones that we installed in our cars they were from a company called WatchGuard, and they were actually a self-contained unit with the DVD player built into them. We used them for several years. They were kind of obsolete. I actually tried to sell them back to the company.
That was a good idea.
I tried. I thought maybe somebody wanted them for parts, and Detective Sergeant Lucchese laughed at me because I thought
It was a good
I was going to
idea.
succeed. But I did not succeed, so the laugh was on me. At any rate, they've been in our garage just in storage, collecting dust for years. I talked to SUNY at one point to see if they were interested in maybe buying them as a trial run for themselves, but basically because they're obsolete and you can't get parts for them anymore. They're nice door weights. So before I get rid of them, I just wanted to get approval to discard them. Basically, to the dumps they go. You know, we'll take them out of inventory, but you know, I've looked into every possibility to sell them. You know, unless maybe the only thing we can do is if maybe Chris Marks can look at putting it on the auction site that he deals with. But again, because they're obsolete, I think you're not probably going to sell them, but it's worth a try before we dispose of them.
I feel like someone would want the parts. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
nobody's
enough about
using
it.
them anymore because they've upgraded. WatchGuard now, they don't have that program anymore with the DVDs. Now they're all pretty much digital and, you know, gets to a flash drive type thing.
Do they still work, or?
Maybe one worked out of the bunch. We took them out because they weren't working and then they weren't going to fix them anymore.
Maybe a local video company, you know, USIA Video. Find that owner. No, never mind.
But if
Yeah,
you
we're
would like-
always looking for obsolete stuff.
I tried, come on. We do, and I just don't know how this works, but when we auction off vehicles and things, is there mechanisms also at least attempt to sell something like that?
For equipment?
Yeah.
There is the website, the one website that you can auction off anything. You can auction off, you know. Oh, what?
Your mother.
My mom was around.
Yes, almost.
What is her food? She had good food. I can probably make a lot of money on it. But we can, you know, you can put a filing cabinet in it, you know, and, you know, get whatever they give. We can try that. I can talk to Chris and maybe try to.
Well, I guess,
do it.
I mean, we might as well try, because
Yeah, I know,
then,
it's
because
a
otherwise we
shame
don't
to
have to
not
pay,
try.
and then also we don't have to pay for
Yeah.
garbage costs money.
Yeah. Just think of 13, well, you know, there's some metal in them, so the metal can be given to the town to dispose of and get
Well,
some scrap. for
Joe,
it.
Thursday night, we have a joint meeting. We could do it.
This is this Thursday?
Don't we still have that?
No, isn't
No,
that
next-
that's at the end of the month,
Yeah.
isn't
Sep-
it?
Did they,
That's the 17th and 24th.
I just said they're not doing the one coming,
I don't think so.
I think we're doing it on the
24th?
24th, right?
okay, the
Yeah,
24th.
24th is our joint, 17th is our regular meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So.
Although there's a little confusion though, because I thought Riverkeeper thinks they're coming to us, but if we're doing a joint meeting,
Oh,
I
it's
think
gonna be at
next one's
Village
up with
Hall.
them, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
Well, at our
anyway,
next
anyway.
meeting, at our next
Yeah.
town board meeting, if everyone agrees, we can approve removing them from inventory and for you to see to them as fit.
Why don't
I
you
can
talk
talk
to
to
Chris?
Chris first.
Yeah,
Why don't you
talk to
talk, why don't you
Chris,
talk to
but-
Chris, and then we can put this on the agenda
We'll put that
for,
on the agenda for the next
town board meeting.
town board meeting.
Chris seems really
Yeah.
good with all that
Yeah.
auction stuff and what he's been
Yeah.
dealing with, and he's doing.
But then
it
we'll
for
just make the
us.
approval for you to dispose of them.
Yeah, we'll wait for Chris to
We'll
tell us
take
what
them
to
out of
do.
inventory.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what Chris wants to do, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, cool.
Okay? Old police car status.
I would like them to sell even for $2 each, just so I can laugh back.
I'll buy them for $2, okay?
We're in.
Anybody want to give me a buck? 50 cents each. Okay, done. What? What do you say?
Ethics board, so stop it, all of you, behave yourselves.
Old police cars. We had 4 total cars, as it's mentioned at the last meeting. The one Mark 1, I know the board already approved sale to
The college.
the SUNY Ulster. They are waiting for the W-9 form. Did
So
you sign that
we
today?
do need the W-9?
Apparently so.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anybody's paying tax, it's just a
You
documentation
have the W-9
thing.
in your office, don't you?
No, Carol had it.
It's back at the office?
Yep, she had it
Okay.
for you to sign.
Okay.
And then she was gonna fax it out to
Okay.
somebody there.
Okay.
I believe they have the check ready. As soon as they get that, they're gonna send us the check and they'll pick the car up.
I'll sign the W-9 tomorrow.
Yep. So that was good. We got more money than, if we were to strip it down and try to sell it as a regular car, so they can use it the way it is. They will take off the markings and repaint it and what have you themselves. There's 3 cars out at the town garage, one of which he wants to replace for the cleaning personnel or whatever to use. The other 2, he says, is not really worth keeping. They have antifreeze leaks issues. It would cost more to fix than you can get if you auction them off. So he's going to look at putting them off to auction.
Okay.
He was saying that that it would cost more, because I know Laura had talked about, unless maybe she can just borrow a car, because a lot of times she has to take the truck to go
Right.
somewhere, which costs more than her, she doesn't need the truck, but to go somewhere, she takes the truck. So I know she had asked about a car, but if, the car is gonna cost money to fix, it's not,
Yeah, he says it's just because of the issue with the manifold and the leak, the way they leak. They use, for whatever reason, they use like a plastic type of, on a manifold, like a plastic gasket seal, where it melts and then heats up, or it heats up and melts, then it hardens back up, and then it causes a leak, and then they'll leak on and off. And he's, just like the one they're using now, does the same thing, and he says put too much into it for putting antifreeze in all the time. So,
okay,
it's
so,
not worth fixing.
so what are we thinking about doing with the other 2 cars? They're gonna,
He was gonna look to auction them
to
off.
look them off, okay. So,
Now, do you have to approve that at the town board meeting, or?
What did-
Yeah, it's assets, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have to do that as a
Okay.
town, we have to
So
do that as a
then
town
we'll,
board.
Okay, so we will put this on the next town board agenda.
49, all units, no ghost phones are down.
Okey doke. Okay, evidence fund status.
That is the funds and the evidence that I told you. Detective Sergeant Lucchese met with Joe Moriello. Moriello is just doing a little bit more research in regards to it, just so that we have all the protocols in place. But that shouldn't be a problem, as we discussed last time, on how the money can be, put into the general fund. So we're just
Wait a
waiting.
second, time out a second.
Yeah.
We don't put the money into the general fund. Well, we're trying.
This is not seized. No,
Okay.
This is money that has been either found property that was not claimed, funds that people have not come back to pick up.
Okay.
Even if it was a drug case or whatever, that they were to get something back, but then they have not been located and have not come back. So there's a protocol in place that you
Okay.
can actually take that money, and you have to, I guess, pass a resolution.
What you have to do is you have to publicize, there's a list of the individuals. If it's not found property, well, with found property, you have to check with the finder, see if you can locate them. And once you've eliminated that, that can automatically go into the town's general fund as long as a certain period of time has passed. Funds confiscated subsequent to an arrest of an individual, we would have to post that in the local papers, the name of the individual, the date that it was seized, and so on and so forth, and give those individuals time to claim those funds. If they don't, then we would be able to put those into in the town's general fund. Mr. Moriello is just trying to look into some information that we received. I initially received the information from the DA's office, from one of the ADAs. He's trying to verify that, and then he and I are going to work on putting a policy in place for us as a department as to how we would proceed from this point forward. We have funds that we've inventoried that are from the 1980s that were in the evidence room, so.
And I told you, I don't have it with me, but I think it was somewhere around $16,000 or something like that. So, again, if we can get done, go into the
Yeah.
general fund, then maybe we can put it into an account that can be used for things that need to be purchased, maybe in towards the computer system.
Where's that money now?
That's what
It's still in evidence.
I would do, most likely. but,
So when you say in evidence,
I
it's-
have,
It's secured in evidence and locked
Oh, so
in.
this is
It's
actual
locked up.
cash that's locked
Yeah.
up?
Correct, yeah.
so the only question I would have is, and I would make sure we ask Joe, when it says to do a local publication, I don't think that the New Paltz Times is a big enough area, so I think Joe would have to tell us
Where about to go, how
which
far.
is the publication arena.
He
Like
has
the
to-
Freeman probably isn't even, but maybe the
He's looking into
record.
all of that, of how we would have to appropriately
Right.
post it.
Okay,
If it would have to be more than one paper, those are all the things that he's looking into right
Okay.
now. And then again, he's gonna work with me so that we put a policy in place. We will create a department policy as to
Okay.
how we need to move forward from there.
okay.
Do you have any idea about how much more time he needs?
He didn't say.
Okay.
And would this be
Well, if
inclusive
it's
of
been
all?
sitting there since the 80s,
Some.
Susan, you're getting greedy.
No, I just want to be able to check it off and say done.
We all do.
Would this include all unclaimed assets, do you know? So for example, anything else that's found or turned in? I mean, would this include just?
No, this is just cash. This
Could we
isn't-
roll this into an unclaimed asset, so too? Like, because you must have items sitting in there that maybe we could sell. I mean, I'll just say the 80s, but just say you have a, I don't know, what's something
Rolex
valuable
watch.
from the 80s?
Michael
Yes.
Jackson.
Yeah.
Yes, it might.
Let's go back to the Rolex.
You have a, someone
Rolex
found,
watch.
seriously, someone found a watch and turned it in. Maybe we could start, is there laws already
Well,
covering disposal
there-
of those?
There's laws that talk about, because you always offer back to the finder if it's not claimed.
Okay.
Depending on the value, depends on how long you have to keep it. But the issue is, we really haven't dealt, I don't think, with getting rid of property. If somebody doesn't claim it and stuff, we usually just hold on to it, and that's been the
So
issue.
we should
Right.
start.
Yeah, I don't know how much stuff we have, but we can probably do inventory. Some stuff that doesn't have a value, whatever, can be destroyed, and you just document this destroyed. But if we were to run into something like that, obviously you're not gonna destroy, something that's worth that kind of money. Because you can do some type of auctioning off, you see that.
You see those police auctions
Yeah, yeah.
posted in the city papers
Right.
frequently.
Yeah, so you would do that same thing, but again, Joe Moriello would have to give you a ruling on that.
Well, we should start to get into that, because I
Yeah.
mean, for you keeping stuff locked up
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
why? It's ridiculous. Okay, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, detective position,
Yes, I guess, this is kind of, we can,
roll both.
let's do this. Why don't we talk
You
about
want to
the
do the sergeant's exam and then
first?
do the other two?
Yes, then we'll
Sure.
come back to it. Sergeant exam, the reason why I put that on there, I want to talk about the protocols that take place, what has taken place, and if there's an issue or concern, then I'd like to address it, and so we can go forward from here. In the past, anytime there was a promotional exam, the way it works is civil service, there's two ways. We can call them and say, we have an opening, we'd like to request a test at the next available time period when they give them. The other way is when somebody does that from any agency in the county, their practice is they pick up the phone, they call you and say, we're running a test, you want to be included. We have always been included. I've never turned one down. My predecessors have never turned them down. Sometimes they come in a year apart, sometimes they come 3 years or 4 years apart. So it really depends on how they offer them, but usually they're every year, every other year. I received a call for the sergeant exam. I know that was brought to the attention of the board or the commission in regards to somebody was upset, a member here was upset that I requested the test. And it was my understanding that the board or commission was upset that I did not speak about it. So I just wanted to clarify that with everybody here. It was not done to not tell anybody. I've just never had to tell a commission or a board that, hey, a promotional exam's coming up. Did not even think about it. So if the board was upset with the fact that they weren't notified, and you want to be notified in the future, I'll be happy to notify you. It's just something that was never done. We've had, going back to when I was promoted to sergeant in the late 90s, I was in a temporary position. I was on the list. And because there was a time period waiting for that temporary position to waiting for a sergeant that was at an injury to retire, another test was given, so I had to take a test again and pass that test to be hired because of the time period. We have a couple members sitting in this room in the back that was on the list and eligible, and another test came out, and and they do get upset. Sometimes they'll come to you and say, why do you have to have a test? And I always say that the protocol that I always follow is, if a test is given, we always accept it. This way, there's no issue with somebody saying you're doing favors, you're doing anything because you're not on the list or you are on the list. And it's been what I've stuck with, and I'll continue to stick with. It saves the aggravation of saying that, oh, sure, they're on the list, so now you don't offer me the opportunity to take the test. So again, I just wanted to discuss that. If you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer it. Again, I was kind of surprised that that you were interested in knowing about the promotional exam. But, you know, give me direction. If you want to know every time they're offered, I'll be happy to pass it on.
Probably safe to just do it.
Just pass it on?
Just pass it on.
I'll even make copies and give them to you if you like.
Then we'll, if somebody says anything, it won't be a surprise, right?
Yeah, I think the surprise was, and because we found out about it later, that someone had approached Susan and spoken to about it, and she didn't know. So I think that was it. So I think they really said, so I think just if you let us know, then none of us are, so to speak, and I don't want to use the term caught off guard in a bad way, but then we're not standing there.
See, usually.
And in Susan's case, she was just kind of like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that was the problem. It's just, it kind of left her hanging there. And if someone had asked me, I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I think you're absolutely right. And I'll ask you too, just because you deal in civil service so much, is it just makes sense, right? If civil service calls you and says you want to be included in it,
You would just do
you just do it, right? There's no upside to saying no. So why wouldn't you just say,
I mean, no downside,
what'd I say?
upside.
I apologize. There's no downside. There's no downside to just say, yeah, just be
it.
included.
It would just keep your list more current, if you just,
Mhm.
just.
Yeah.
And I have to say in my defense, if proper
You don't have to defend
protocol.
yourself.
Yeah,
Defend yourself.
You don't have to defend
Yeah,
yourself.
I want to.
Well, just that we had a board member caught off
Yeah.
guard, and they were just like,
If proper
yeah,
protocol
yeah.
was followed and that member didn't
Yeah,
go
they do it.
away from chain of command and
Right.
came to me and said, hey, I'm upset about this,
Right.
and I'd like to talk to the supervisor about it, I could have said, supervisor, this person has come and talked to you and expressed the fact that they're not happy with something that I'm doing here.
Mhm.
That is proper protocol, not going and complaining above and beyond me. Thank you.
Correct.
No, okay, and then, so it just makes sense, I guess, any time though, it's just that we just expect that if there's anything, I guess it's for a promotional exam in civil service, you just say yes.
Just shoot an email when you do it, that's all.
Yeah. And maybe even just shoot,
Yeah.
shoot an email, and then
That's
we'll
fine.
everyone would know.
Like I said, it was never
No, that's
intended
fine.
for anything
Yeah,
negative,
there's no
it's
issue.
just,
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so, moving
Okay.
on.
Now we're back to the lieutenant position, administrative sergeant position, detective position.
Now, I just want to just make one statement before you,
Mhm.
and I've said this to my board members, if not individually. I do believe we have to act on this, and I do believe this board has to take some action and make some decisions and move forward. I just want to say we will not take action tonight because this is not something we should do without a full board. And I wouldn't do anything and make any decisions without a complete board being here to be able to weigh in. So we could maybe do it at our next town board meeting if we want to have executive session and talk. But I just want to, so we can talk about it. I just don't want you to expect us to take action because I won't do anything without.
Well, how about then we take action in what we were supposed to take action in?
Well, but you can go through your whole thing and talk
Okay.
about the whole thing. I just want you to know, and if you want us to still take action with the detective,
Yes,
we
yeah,
can do
okay.
that. I just don't want to have any expectation that we're going to take action on the
Lieutenant's
lieutenant
position,
or
okay. So let me
administrative
keep
sergeant
them
tonight,
separate
only
then.
because Kevin's not here, and
Fair enough.
it's not appropriate to do it without, it's too big of a decision for not each board member to weigh in.
Okay.
So, and I didn't know Kevin was going to be having his procedure today.
The reason
But
why
anyway,
I was
but
gonna
yeah.
put them all together is
Yeah, I
because
know,
I know
yeah.
we had that
Yes.
meeting with the PBA, and,
So why don't we
No,
just go
no
back, let me
topic.
just, because Jeff, I think, might be the only one who knows, possibly, I don't know if I let you all know, that there was a PBA meeting last Wednesday night, and I had gotten a phone call from Anthony Sofaro, the labor attorney for the PBA, about some issues and concerns about a lot of different stuff. And what I was hearing was a lot of mixed messages and misinformation spinning sort of around and everybody getting upset in different circles. And so I decided the best thing to do was to come to the meeting myself, to be here and let the PBA ask me questions directly about what the board was thinking and doing. And you know, sometimes it's just better to just go and say, you know, ask me what you want, I'll tell you what's the truth. You know, and you can believe what you want, but I'm going to tell you what the board is thinking. And it ended up, I mean, the chief and I both ended up being guests, and I personally think, I'd like to think the PBA thinks too, I think it was a very, very, very good meeting. I think it was great to have the opportunity to express to the PBA the history of how the administrative sergeant began, which came out of the PBA at negotiations, which you two were both at, when Anthony Sofaro talked about the administrative sergeant versus the lieutenant, and then where it's gone since then. So I was able to put everything into context and then, you know, break down some, you know, misinformation and whatever and go from there. And so I did promise that our board would try to take action quickly on this. I did I do believe that from the PBA's perspective, you know, the police, if I didn't know it before, I certainly learned it now. I mean, we all know that they're paramilitary, that structure and command and ranking is very important to them, and so sort of having things up in the air, you know, for the past year and a half, 2 years has been a little disconcerting. So, you know, we are the board, we are the police commission, it's our obligation, so we will handle it, but with that, you can go back to.
Well, I know at the last meeting, we talked about putting a detective in, a temporary detective up to a year, while this was all working out. The reason why, like I said, I thought that we had a brief conversation with the supervisor mentioning that she wants to take an action and get this done with, so it's not just out there with the unknown of lieutenant, administrative sergeant, whatever. And hopefully we could resolve that soon. And what I had said is that if you were willing to make that movement now, then we wouldn't talk about the detective position if that's where the board was at. I'm hearing that right now because Kevin's not here and stuff that we want to hold off. So let's just pick up where we left off and go ahead and I'll talk to you in regards to the detective interviews, which we only had really one individual apply for the position at this point. So we still conducted interviews like we said we would. And I know you had asked for some information. Here's I can make copies if you want, or you can pass it around. The back 2 pages are questions that were asked during the interview. It's Detective, or he's officer now again, Joe Judge was the person that was interviewed. He filled out a letter of interest, the abstract for the detective position, which talks about cases they've worked, their stats of how many arrests they've had, different trainings that they may have attended during their police career, as well as whether you're in the detective division or not. And again, the questions that were asked. Joe was in the detective division, as you know. Did a phenomenal job. Actually, one of the letters from the DA's office was in regards to his work. You know, him not being in the detective position for the last 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, or maybe 4 now, has been definitely setting the detective position back a little, division back a little bit, leaving most of the work, all the work on Matt Sutton. So I'd like to, you know, make my recommendation that we put Joe back in the division until a decision is made for lieutenant or whatever else we're gonna do.
I think the only question I have, and that's what I asked you, and that's why we didn't want to be part of the interviews, is everyone that interviewed him, they were all affirmative?
Yes.
And that would be the supervisors, so we
Well,
have one of the supervisors here, they're all affirmative in.
The interview was conducted by myself, Detective Sergeant Lucchese, and Sergeant Lewis. They were the ones that were present for the interview panel. We all asked questions. You know, we're all very happy with the work that Joe has done. You know, I'm a little disappointed. I thought more people might put in for it, but I think that everybody's hoping that we move forward and you know, go forward. Joe doesn't mind if it's 2 weeks that he's in there. He says, I'm in there 2 weeks helping out, and hopefully the structure comes back to the agency. If it takes a little bit longer than that, you know, he's willing to do whatever it has to do. You know, to just keep our division successful. It's very important to be successful in that position. Because that's, you know, the kind of the bread and butter backbone of the investigations of the agency.
Now, you guys understand, because right now we have the detective sergeant operating, you know, as administrative sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, and so we're backfilling with 2 detectives, but if we are to go back to the structure that we had, then we'd have the detective sergeant and a sergeant, so then the sergeant. So I did ask at the PBA meeting when this did come up, and I did ask the person being considered, because my concern is playing ping pong with everybody and back and forth, which is why I believe we have to make a decision. And he said if it's 1 day or 2 weeks or 3 months or 9 years, he doesn't care. He's okay with understanding the situation. And so I said, okay, as long as you're okay with the fact that you could get this position and next week they're back as patrol, and we're all clear that that's okay, then, you know, the board was prepared to move forward anyway, so, you know, but we did have that conversation. He was very clear that. So, somebody want to make a motion? Or have a discussion? Or
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion that we
Well,
take.
okay, one
Okay.
second. So this is based on that motion that we made, that this is temporary up to that limited amount.
Oh,
of
I'm sorry.
time.
You-
So
no.
regardless of if it's 2
No, I
days,
think I
it won't be 9 years.
Correct.
Okay.
I hope it's not 9 years.
Well, it can't be 9 years because we made a motion,
Yes. It's
something
gonna be
like
up
not to
to 12
exceed
months.
18 months or something.
12
No,
months.
no, no, no.
12.
In other words, you could maybe at one, yes, yes. I'm sorry, Jean.
Um, Okay.
Good.
Yeah, because the chief's making a recommendation.
Yeah, so I make a motion that we accept the chief's recommendation of Joseph Judge into the temporary detective position.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion so carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay.
Thank you,
Is there
Chief.
anything you want to say?
And thank everyone
Chief,
else that
about-
did the interviews with you, and,
Sorry?
thank you everyone that you did the interviews with, and did you, that's why I didn't want to have us included in it. Do you think it worked a little better with?
I think it was fine.
Okay, good.
We also went with a neutral sergeant in regards to the case, so we can pick one that, would be favoring or not favoring, because of their being partners and, so, worked out well.
Good.
How'd you find
Thank
somebody
you.
neutral?
It's magic. You just have to work magic.
They were
It was neutral as
or they
possible.
were neutral in your eyes.
Well, we spoke, actually, Casey and I spoke about it, who we want to pick, and, and we actually offered to a couple people and see who was interested, and took it from there, too.
Good.
Okay, great.
As far as the lieutenant's position, what would you like from me? Would you like me to come to another meeting, or to discuss it at the next commission meeting? You want to come to a board meeting?
Well, you could discuss it now, but we're just not going to take any action.
Okay, let's discuss.
So
I
we're
have
not
nothing
gonna-
on it right now, so you can just, if you have something for us, I'll discuss it now. I'm not,
What's to
wasn't prepared.
discuss?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's to discuss?
let's all get up and make an action.
Okay,
It's-
so
it's-
since
it's-
that's not gonna
it's
happen right here
time. It's
tonight,
time.
just what's to discuss?
I think the only thing I would say is, let's not put it on the back burner. Let's
Right,
go
okay.
full steam ahead and make a decision. We need to have direction. We've been making do to get through because we don't have that luxury in other organizations where we can kick back and say we're not doing
You wanna do that to Joe
it.
Judge now?
What's that?
Take away,
Oh,
his
Joe-
take away and be detective. We gotta let him at
Joe
least
said
do-
he would do it a day or he'd do it 9 years, so
Yeah.
he's willing to do what's best for
We
his
want
agency.
to give him a little bit of
Yeah.
time to enjoy the position.
He has for 6 months, and now he's ready to do one day and be moved out and to be set up.
Okay.
And yes, Joe, I think we do need to set up a meeting to have a little longer discussion on it,
Mhm.
and definitely just questions on the two different formations. And, this is one of the reasons why we reform like this, too. Though.
Mhm.
This is absolutely one of the things that we're coming up on, I think, 2 years before we know it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it'll be 2 years before we even know it.
3 more months.
So, yeah.
Can we try to, assuming we can have full attendance, take this up at our next meeting? Can we just maybe commit to that just for the chief and the department, that that's something that we're gonna wanna do at our next?
But not do, but we can do discussions on it, absolutely.
Sure, but at least
Yeah.
make sure that it's on the
Because-
agenda for our next meeting.
Do you know something?
I'm
do
just
we
trying
have
to
a
think,
lot?
when do
Trying
we
to
have,
think.
when do we have our next contract negotiation? Or labor management, or,
I don't think they have a date yet.
We didn't put a date in.
I don't think we ever left a
No.
meeting without a date.
I think we
Really?
left it this time, because they were gonna send emails to each other about
Yeah.
certain things.
There was
Oh,
some-
no,
yeah,
I know,
we
actually,
didn't
no,
put a
you know
date
what?
in.
Actually, I realized we don't have another meeting
We
because
don't.
we're supposed to be putting together a offer. Even
Yes.
though we had an offer.
That's what we.
We're supposed to put together
that's
our,
the
like,
email I sent out.
real offer.
Well, that was the email I sent out, the
Right.
spreadsheet.
That's right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so we
Which I
have,
believe that
we have
I
our work
copied
to
you on
do.
that, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
So actually, we actually have to have a board meeting, executive session for contract negotiations, because we have to really put pen to paper and,
The only thing I would recommend is, and I know you've talked about negotiations with the union and stuff about the union contract, I would just recommend that you don't base the lieutenant's position on that contract,
Mhm.
because that can take another 2 years.
Well, we absolutely agree with you. That's, and as you being
There should be
part,
enough.
as you being
Well-
part of representing the town, you absolutely, you absolutely.
I guess I'll take a chance of asking this question and hope I'm not asking something out of context or whatever. What I made clear to the PBA was, it was the PBA that brought up the administrative sergeant in the first place and put it on the table. And And I even commented about, if you guys remember, because you guys were there, you weren't there, we sat there, we had expected to do a lieutenant, administrative sergeant got brought up, Anthony Safaro, the attorney for the union, talked about the administrative sergeant, and Carl Baker was representing the union. Carl Baker actually was arguing for the lieutenant, and Anthony and Carl, if you remember, started fighting with each other. And I don't know if you remember, because I remember sitting back and thinking, oh, this is great, I don't have to say a word. I could just sort of like watch this one and see what happens kind of thing. And then eventually what happened was Anthony sort of got called to stop talking, and Anthony continued with the administrative sergeant. And so what I was saying to the PBA was it really came from them, at least from our perspective, because it was their lawyer who was bringing it forward. And so in a way, you know, from my perspective, it was always this is what the union wanted. And so when we were trying to talk about how to make a decision, I had said to all of you at one point when we were trying to decide what to do, well, let's wait till we see what happens in negotiations, because if we do the lieutenant and the union doesn't want it, it puts us behind the 8 ball in the negotiations, because we're already going in having done something they didn't want. So we were saving it for union negotiations. Then during the negotiation, we started talking about the structure. This board said, we don't want this to be a part of negotiations, it's not. Now, when I came to the PBA meeting, I got a sense that there was not necessarily unanimity amongst the PBA relative to their feelings about an administrative sergeant and a lieutenant, and that there was some dichotomy or divisiveness about what the department really wanted to see. So I guess in a roundabout way, I'd love to sort of get a sense from the PBA in terms of where the New Paltz PBA wants to go, not Anthony Safaro, but the New Paltz PBA wants to go relative to this position, because it impacts us when we go into negotiations. If we're doing something against the PBA, you know, the PBA is already upset with us, so it would be nice to get a little bit more clarity, and I guess that's gonna have to be a conversation with the PBA, get a little bit more, but I just throw that out as.
One of the things that Bill did say, though.
Was I wrong in the take that I got from that meeting?
No, you're right. You know, because there was certain people that were pushing for the administrative sergeant for potentially their own reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think so that's not very clear that that's what they wanted. I think a lieutenant's position is more favored based on my feeling from many people. Some people don't care, they just want some structure. From my standpoint, and what Bill Wallens had said at the last meeting is that it's not a negotiable thing. You shouldn't even let them give you input. It should be the board and myself to sit down and talk about what this agency needs for the structure of the department, for best operations. And, you know, and that's why, you know, I've always said lieutenant is the preference, because for disciplinary reasons, for investigative reasons, anything to do with internal operations, having a second in command that's out of the union is always beneficial. So, you know, again, if you're looking to get something from the union, you know, I don't know necessarily who you would speak to for that. You know, I wouldn't recommend talking to one person. I would recommend, you know, asking the union maybe to write a letter or something like that.
I don't even know if there's unanimity within the union. I just know that when I was at the meeting, I got a sense that there was not necessarily a total agreement on how all this played out. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, but.
So Joe, I'm sorry.
So we'll deal with it.
I think the only part that wasn't probably too true is when Susan said she couldn't sit there and not say anything. Because I think if I remember, she was saying things. I think you did have comments on it. When Carl and Anthony.
Well, not during that period. I might have had things to say during the union negotiation, but not when Carl and Anthony were fighting over the administrative sergeant.
But
No, that one I sat and laughed.
I think we do want to take our legal advice, which is that the board had all agreed on, which is the structure of the department going forward will be something that will be discussed between the town board and the police chief and the police commission. And we have the advantage of the police commission and the town board being one and the same in one body. And then we can make the decision as the town board, because it will affect the expenditure of funds and also signing of contract if we go with the lieutenant. And if we don't, the signing of a contract with PBA. So either way, so Susan, not to disagree with you,
okay,
but I would prefer that the future structure is a decision made
That's
by.
That's okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and to, you know, 'cause I know we all sat and discussed that, and from our attorney's advice too, and I think Joe made some good points too, Bill's advice too, which was the structure of it belongs within the hierarchy of the department. Now, certain members that would have input, I would be interested in hearing from, are members of the PBA. So I think with that as a discussion, I think I feel more comfortable with Joe having with those members in the PBA. I don't know if I have a comfort level as a town board member having discussions with individual PBA members as though they're speaking for the PBA.
Well,
If that makes sense,
yeah,
Joe?
one of the things that I had said was the PBA chooses their leadership.
Right.
So if their leadership speaks to me, or to any of us for that matter, but if they speak to me, I have to take it on face value that they're speaking for their membership. Because the membership picked them to be, you know, just like they sit in negotiations with us, and if the people sitting with us, negotiating with us, we have to believe that they're negotiating on behalf of the PBA, just like we as a team are negotiating on behalf of our board. And that's why we always go back to the board after a negotiation to make sure the other members that were not there agree with us, you know, so we're all working together. So I just sort of think that right now, there might be some dissension amongst who represents them and what unanimity in between who's representing them versus what everybody feels, and that's where I think there's a little bit of a disconnect.
If I can try to clarify, just so I can make it clear in my head, and I guess what I'm saying is, and see if you agree with this, is the decision of whether it goes with a detective, I apologize, whether it goes with a lieutenant position or administrative sergeant is a discussion outside of the PBA, as far as I'm concerned.
At this point, it's us. At this
Okay,
point, it's
that's
us,
fine,
and we're gonna
okay.
make, at this point,
And
it's
then-
us, we're gonna make the
And then the
decision.
only discussion that I'm comfortable with, that would be with any PBA members, I would prefer they stay with the chief, and then anyone that might be in the PBA, or actually is in the PBA, below the chief that he'd be working with. So if he has someone that he may be working with, or anyone he's working with now, and we'll just use, he's in the room, just, you know, Mr. Lucchese, and he's working with Detective Sergeant Lucchese, even though he's in the PBA, when he is discussing this structure with him, I think those discussions, he knows he's not talking to the PBA. He's just discussing with a PBA member. So he can have those discussions without acting as the PBA, correct? Like, I'm trying to see how, I'm trying to see how we're going to get, like, I want to be able to hear from you.
Well, I think.
Who's, like, you understand what I'm getting at? I'm trying to see, I need you to be able to come back to us with an intelligent discussion, and I apologize by saying it, but an educated discussion on what is the structure of the department going to be. And I think the only way you can do that is by discussing it with PBA members that are not, Susan, they're not representatives. In other words,
Yeah.
they're not people that are sitting at
Yeah.
the table with us in
Yeah,
negotiations.
no, I agree with you. I think what I'm trying to say is that because it was brought up by the PBA, in the PBA meeting about the administrative sergeant, there was a feeling that that's what the PBA wanted. So all I'm saying is, so we were sort of like, when we were, you know, trying to figure this out, it was like how to make this work. All I'm
What if they do a
saying,
survey? Do a survey, number them from 1 through
Sure.
whatever?
Again, I guess I'm trying to, well, Susan, I guess I'm trying to get off
I
that.
guess I'm just trying to say in a sense that I guess at this
circle
point
it,
it
put 'em in a
matter, it doesn't
box,
matter what the
and pass it on
PBA
to you
wants,
guys.
because I don't think they all agree, so screw it, it's up to us.
You said that in much more plain language than I may have said
Well, I was
it.
trying to be, I was trying to.
Yeah, it was very succinct.
I was trying to
because
be
again,
diplomatic at the beginning, now I'm just saying it. You
Okay.
know what, it's an outcome, let's just do it, let's move on.
We now both have the same, and again, and I guess the difference being though is that if the three of us are sitting in there and we do make an agreement at that moment,
Yes.
it is a binding agreement, and so when we go back to the board, actually, the other two board members can vote against us, we cannot change our vote.
No, I understand that.
If
And
we
I-
make an agreement, so that's the difference between us and the PBA though, the PBA members that are talking to
Right.
us, they still need to go back to the rank and file.
Right.
And get the rank and file to agree to all of it. So that's why the
Right.
structure of the department solely belongs to the police commission and the town board, which at this moment is one and the same. And the only way I could see for us to make that decision is to allow the chief, for lack of a better term, do his job
Mhm.
and discuss with himself and with his hierarchy currently in his department, what is the structure that's going to work for all of us?
Right.
And that's the decision, that's really the discussion I want to have. And whether it takes place at a public meeting, I think parts of it are, there may be other parts of it we may need to go into executive session because it would involve contracts. So the public parts, I think, and you may need to talk to our labor attorney to find out what parts we discuss in public and what parts we discuss in private. But this definitely is a decision I agree with you, it's a decision we need to make. We'll be at 2 years before it's made. But let's get it made sooner than later.
The only thing is just let's be very clear that, well, usually it's been 3 of us at the negotiations, but recently Jean has been very
No,
busy
that's
at
fine,
work.
yeah.
So it's been 2 of us, but, you know, we've been very careful to talk to the board as a whole, then go back, and then if we agree to something, we know we're bringing back the wishes
absolutely.
of the
Oh, yeah.
entire board, so it's not like the 3 of us making a decision,
No,
and then coming back to the 2 of
absolutely
you, the other 2, and saying tough luck.
And Bill would never
So-
let us do that anyway. So
Well,
that
he might, he might not, he might, you know, but the point is, we would never,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
that anything we've done, because, you know, it's like, we talk to the board, then we go back and represent the board, and,
Yes. Okay, so you said it very succinctly before, to use Jean's words. Thank
Very
you.
succinct.
Thank
Well,
you.
one thing also is if you're talking about a lieutenant's position, you know, I think that should be conversation with the entire board. And
well, that's why, that's the
Absolutely,
point that
absolutely.
that's the point that I'm making.
Right. So we
Yes,
can all sit
absolutely.
down, we can talk
Yeah.
about.
Oh, no, that's what I mean.
That's the
When I
point,
say the
that's-
board, I
yeah.
apologize. When I say the board, not the negotiating team,
Right,
but
right.
it would be the entire police commission, town board would be making that decision. And we're, again, looking from input from you. And I don't think any of these board members should be discussing with the PBA either one of these positions, that is the chief's job to discuss with people that are members of the PBA, but certainly not the leadership of it, unless you feel the leadership has information that would help you make a decision and guide us
You know,
into the structure. And that's fine, you don't need to answer that. if you know what I mean.
From
Yeah.
what I gather from the membership, I think more are in favor of the lieutenant's position. However, there is a group of them that, you know, they don't care. They just want something to be done rather than the wait. So then, you know, from a board and my standpoint, the pros outweighed with a lieutenant's position and any of the negatives. You know, and then if you're thinking of money, you know, you're talking, although you can negotiate, but salary and everything that goes into a negotiation, you're not giving up a person. You're either gonna call them a tomato or a tomato. You know, and what you negotiate with that person, whether it's an administrative sergeant or an individual. An individual you can negotiate with one-on-one rather than going through a union issue. When you negotiate with SAFAR or the union, you know, then, you know, it's just that much more into play of the process. I know myself in the past, when I was lieutenant and now chief, you know, it's fairly easy to negotiate. We sit down, we talk about it, and we don't have to sit there and go back 30 million times. You know, we put the little things on the table that we want to discuss and we move forward. You know, so I think there's always a benefit from a board standpoint also to get it done, rather than saying, okay, now we have to wait another 6 weeks to meet with so-and-so again. But again, the structure is the biggest cry for, that we need the structure to be in place. You know, what you're gonna call it, you know, to me, that's really more minimal, even though I have a preference.
Well, I think, and
And that's the
I'll
same.
speak for myself, and then I think, and again, we don't have Kevin here, but what I'd like to hear from you is, and again, Susan used the correct term, is a police department is a paramilitary organization, and decisions are made at the top, and there's a reason for that, and then that is how the structure is developed.
Yep.
So I would much rather hear from you how you want to build your department personally.
Well, I'll tell you right now how he wants to
I-
do it. He's been telling
I know,
us for
but
2
I mean,
years.
I do also want to hear, but I also do want to hear his reasoning behind it, honestly. I don't want to, but I do want to hear your reasoning behind it.
I have given
And-
the reasons,
Yeah.
yes, so.
He has.
but,
Yeah, no, I have.
Yeah.
And I think that's what for me, that would be the best way for us to now move forward on that. And again, it is completely separate. And I think that was the good part of the special meeting we had, just whatever it was, 2 Wednesdays ago, or Tuesday, whatever that was, Thursday meeting, and where we let Anthony know that this is not part of these negotiations. This is a decision that will be made, and it'll be on the timeline that we can all make. So to Dan's point, let's see if we can get this on the next town board agenda. And again, if you need to talk to Bill also about what we should talk about in public and what should be in executive session.
It's okay, I can talk to Bill about that.
Yeah, with because there's going to be some contract positions in it too. I'd be more than happy to discuss it at the next one.
Okay, anybody else have anything else to say?
I'll just, we also talked about the 21st person at the last meeting, about hiring the 21st person. I did request a resident list from the county, so I'm just waiting for that process to finish. So as soon as we get it, you know, I know you said that we can do the interviews and present it to you again. So I'm just waiting for the canvassing part to finish up.
And so with this officer?
And so that'll be for another position down the road. Yeah. But this one was for the, just for the 21st person getting back.
Okay, good.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Okay, so anything else? Anybody else?
I just need executive session, which should be very quick.
For purposes of?
Disciplinary, hiring, firing of an employee.
Okay. Do I have a motion to
So
go into
moved.
executive session?
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion so carried.
Aye.
So just gotta turn the camera off.
Thank you.
Thank you.